Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Kevin Harrington from Succession Plus. Welcome to Exit Like a Boss, where we'll be talking about business exits and being in control. Our webinar today is scheduled for about 30 minutes. Please do ask questions as we go along using the Q&A feature at the top of your team screen. We'll endeavour to answer all your questions during the session or maybe at the end of the words we've got for you today. If questions are very specific to you as an individual, we'll get back to you by email and answer those questions as well. So this should see us finished inside about 45 minutes. So don't forget to join our webinar and Q&A page as soon as you've got questions to ask. And what I want to do now is hand you over to Darryl Bates-Brownsword, who's our CEO. Over to you, Darryl.
Hi, Kevin, and thanks for that wonderful introduction. And yes, let me add my thanks to everyone joining us today. We've got a rather packed session, and I'm going to go through, as we've said, how to exit like a boss. So this is something that we are very passionate about. It's all about understanding what happens with business owners of those SME business sizes, and what is it that you do when it comes to let's call it the stage of your career, the age where you're ready to move on to something else. We all want to set our business up. We often think of our business as our pension. It's often the largest asset we've got, the biggest asset we've got. We want to de-risk that exit process as much as possible. So let's exit like a boss. Let's get into it. So what we're going to be going about, so a bit of an agenda, if you like. I want to share with you a process that we've developed over a number of years. We've been running Succession Plus in Australia and the UK and New Zealand, and soon to be the US. It's been going for about 15 years now, and we've learned a lot of things along the way, and we've learned all the key steps, and we've packaged them, all of the key components that you need to get together and arrange and have organized so that you can create an exit and have that exit on your terms. The steps there's 21 steps, and it's across 5 stages. So that's what we'll be covering today. Quick bit about me so you know who you're talking to. I've been working personally with SMEs and helping them to grow since 1999. My background's engineering. I'm an Aussie. You'll pick that up from the accent. And I moved to the UK in 2005. One of the things that we've been working with is always around helping businesses to grow. And in more recent years, I've approached my attention or directed my attention rather to the exit side of businesses, just because I kept noticing too many business owners were getting to the stage and their exit strategy was a hope or a fantasy strategy, and that just doesn't work. It just, if you don't prepare your exit, you're not going to get to exit on your terms. And something that may be interesting to some of you, if you're advisors yourselves and you're involved in advising other clients of your own, then the Capitalized platform is a digitized platform of the 21 steps, which we've developed and brought to market in the last couple of years. And it's got well over 100 users on that platform now, and it's only been in the marketplace for just over a year. That's all you need. Well, that's about us. But let's get on, shall we? So business and exit planning. When it comes to getting your business to prepare it and thinking about your exit, there's 3 key things we need to think about. We need to think about what's best for the business. The business owners are always starting to think about what's best for them and the business. And there's always that competing tension around, do I maximize the valuation of the business? Oh, but I want to leave a legacy. I want to look after the people who have helped me get to where I am. There's those competing tensions. So I need to focus on what's best for the business. As an owner, I need to focus on what's good for me. What's my financial situation? What's my family situation? What are my assets? What's going to happen to me? What am I going to be doing next? We know as business owners, especially those who are really entrepreneurial, they're really vision driven, they're highly active people. They need to know what they're moving on to next. They dream of sitting on the beach and drinking pina coladas for a while, but we know that, the reality of that is that they're going to get bored after a couple of weeks and fidgety, and they need to move on to something to apply their energy, their vision, their passion. They need to have something that they're moving towards. and the money. We need to focus on the third thing, which is the money, making sure that we know exactly what's happening, what the business owners are doing, where the money's going, the tax planning of that, how much they're getting. Is there enough to fund whatever they want to do next? So they're the three key areas we need to look at. Now, when we talk about exiting like a boss, we want to do that on our terms. So one of the issues, the hurdles, if you like, that we've got to overcome is that more than 50%, more than half of business exits in this SME sector, and I should state that the SME sector that we refer to, because SME is kind of, a bit of a grey definition, the marketplace where we apply our trade and where we do our best work and get our best results are in businesses that are about 1.5 mil revenue through to about that 30 mil revenue mark. Why? Well, it's businesses that are established. They've moved through that self-employed stage. They've got a business. They've got a team of employees. They've moved through beyond that team of employees, the owner plus 10 helpers, for example, to a functionally, or they're starting to move into a functional structured business. Through to about 30 million pounds revenue. Boy, there's quite a number of people in that business, but once they're at that stage, they've often got all of their own advisory type of staff in-house. So 1.5 to 30 mil is the bracket that we're working with. So 55%, as I say, over 50% of the people in that size of business, their exits are unplanned exits. So why is that important? In the case of an unplanned exit, we get hit by a number 3 bus or for whatever reason, we can no longer show up to work. We want to make sure that whatever happens to the business and that the stakeholders are looked after, or whatever happens to the business is as we suggest. Worst case scenario is that a business owner has a will set up and all of his or her assets go to their spouse, which is fantastic. But if that spouse doesn't have any knowledge of how the business operates, they are now got the business that they need to operate with. And if there was a partnership or other partners in the business, other directors, shareholders, then that person is now involved in the business with those other shareholders. It's not fair to the business, it's not fair to the shareholders, and it's definitely not fair for the family. They just want to get on with their life. So we need to cater for that and plan for unplanned exits. So once we've addressed the unplanned exits, what we want to move on to is go, okay, so how do we get our business, how do we set it up for a planned exit? Because if 55% are unplanned exits, what we know is that of the 45% left, all of those businesses that go to market, 80%, that's right, 4 out of 5 of those businesses that do go to market end up in no deal. So unfortunately, we need to be talking to those 20%, the 1 in 5 that do get a deal. We want to improve those stats. We want to improve the odds for business owners who have been working their business for 10, 20, 30 years and who are counting on an exit, and especially those who are counting on the money to fund life after work. So we need to start thinking about what do we need to do to get the business exit ready so that they're 1 in 5. I think there's a couple of key criteria we need to look to. As business owners or as humans, we all have an idea of what one of our assets is worth. If you think of your car, last time you took your car to trade it in or sell it or buy a new one, your initial thoughts were possibly that it was worth a whole lot more than the dealer or the buyer offered you. This is the same with our house and our business as well. But businesses are a bit different. There are a whole lot more moving parts when it comes to valuing a business. So what we need to do is figure out what are some of the key components that make a business attractive to be acquired by a third party. And that third party could be an MBO, it could be employee ownership or a trade sale, or it could be some other financial buyer. But often business owners have a value in mind. They have a number in mind that they want to achieve on their exit. We can argue whether that's a realistic value or not, but they have a number in mind. As business owners, we go, I think I want 1 million, 2 million, 5, 10, 20. They've got a number in mind of what the business is worth. So we call that my valuation. So that's this number here. My valuation is here. It's what the business is worth to me. Now, That's the first metric we've got. If we then have a look from a buyer's perspective, a buyer will value the business differently to what the owner will, and the buyer will have a valuation. Now, one of the metrics is when the buyer's valuation is greater than the owner's valuation of the business or what the business is worth to the owner, then we've got the possibility of a deal. There's one of the measures for a chance of a deal. If the buyer's valuation is less than the owner's value or the number they've got in mind, then we've got some work to do. Now, one of the things we do is we'll have a look at the business and go, let's have a look at the potential valuation. If the business was tidied up and prepared for exit, what would the potential valuation be? And if we made it attractive to a strategic buyer, would that new potential valuation be greater than the valuation to the owner now? So there's one key metric. The other primary metric that we look at for going, is a business exit ready, is a measure of how much time the owners spend in the business in an operational role. How much time do they spend? Are they the key salesperson? Are they the best product deliverer in an accounting practice, for example? Are they the most expensive accountant in the business and they work with all of the big clients in the practice? Are they the key technical person? These are all operational roles in the business. The best metric that we can get for a valuation of a business is when the owners in the business are working in three key areas. First one is they set the context, i.e. their role is that they're in the business and they share the vision for the business and where the vision is going, where the business is going. The next thing they do is that they manage the energy. The energy is all around the culture of the business. They are the leaders and the most inspirational component of the culture in the business. So this is the second area that we want business owners operating in when their business is exit ready or exitable. And the third one is that their whole role is about coaching. They don't play. They don't have any operational responsibility in the business. So that's when they're not working in the business in an operational role. So when they've reached that mark there on our little chart. So when the business can demonstrate that it continues on its current growth trajectory without operational involvement from the owners of the business, and an outside buyer would value the business greater than what the business is worth to the owners, then we're in a position where the business is exit ready and the potential for a deal to be done. So that's just our little fun area of going, hey, look, there's our way of measuring if a business is exit ready and exitable. But they're the key things that we demonstrate to a buyer, an owner rather. So let's jump in. So that's that's the setup. That's the important stuff that we need to understand. And they're the foundations that we need to get in place. Now that we understand our current valuation and what we need to do, we've got, well, let's follow the process of what we need to do to start getting our business exit ready so that we can exit like a boss. I mentioned before the 21 steps, so let's have a look at those. 21 steps, we've got a nice page there. If you want to get this page, I know it's really small writing on this slide and you probably can't see it, especially of those of you if you're on your phone and traveling at the moment. But if you want, you can just drop us an email and ask for the 21 steps and we'll point you in the direction to get that. Or alternatively, we can send the slides out after today's session. But the 21 steps, they're grouped into 5 stages. The 5 stages are the first thing we need to do is let's identify the value. Let's have a look at all the assets and resources you've got available to you in your business so that we can assess the potential. Once we've done that, we know that what the business is worth today to a buyer and what the potential valuation is, we can go, let's protect what we've got. Let's build a solid foundation. Let's move into stage 2 and let's protect the value of the business. Once I've protected it, I've got a nice solid foundation to build on what I've got. So then I can go through stage 3, which is the biggest stage here, which is maximize the valuation of the business. Let's leverage all of the resources I've got. Let's work with all those intangible assets. Let's put them on display. Let's make them obvious to any third party. Let's get known and let's build our reputation around those assets and intangible assets and boost the valuation of our business. Once I've maximized the valuation of my business, and I'm also at a stage where I'm ready to exit, I'm ready to pull the trigger, we need to extract the value of the business. And then there's another stage of getting all the paperwork right. That's when I'll work with a corporate finance team or brokers or M&A professionals. I need to get all of my assets right and all of my documentation and get all that information ready so that it's quickly available for anyone who's interested when they do due diligence. That'll keep the momentum going and boost confidence. Once I then extract the valuation, if I've played my cards right, if I've done everything right, I've got a nice, really healthy bank account. And my bank account is just oozing and overflowing because all of my assets are now no longer in my business. They've cashed in and they're in my bank account. Now, if I've done this, if I've been really fortunate in the way I've run my business, I'm now in a situation where I need to do some estate planning. We've all heard the stories of the first generation builds the wealth, the second generation maintains the wealth, and the third generation blows it. We want to manage that the best we can and prevent it as much as we can, and some good asset planning and working with the right team that'll help us maintain that moving forward. Right, let's get into a little more detail around what the 21 steps are, just so that you know and you've got some sort of idea of what's involved and what you need to do. I'll move through these fairly quickly because today's session is just a bit intended as an overview of what the Succession Plus process is and just all of these proven process of how you get your ducks in a row. Right, stage one is all about identify value that we mentioned before. First thing, and we mentioned that we need to look after the business, we need to look after the owners, the people, and we need to look after the money. So let's figure out what the goals and outcomes are. Because some people are more biased around, look, I've extracted all the money I want from my business over the years. I just want to look after the people. Some say I need to legacy. I think the business should live on. We've created something special. Let's have a legacy. Let's leave that legacy go on. I want the name, I want the brand to continue. Others go, I want to extract as much cash as I can. Now, there's slightly different strategies depending on the goals and the outcomes for the owners. So step one is all about let's understand what each business owner wants from their business. We then do a fact find. Let's gather together all of the resources, all of the assets that are in the business, and some of those assets are hidden. I remember in one of my podcast episodes, and I can put a link to this with a guy called Andrew Sherman. He talked about, he used a correlation as if you were selling your house, you might have some assets hidden in the attic that you've forgotten about. So let's get all of those assets out and put them on display so everyone knows what they are, and we do a fact find and let's uncover all of the assets you've got. And assets, I think, in today's world is as much about intangible assets as it is about tangible. Well, it's more about intangible assets than it is tangible assets. I think the stats that Andrew shared in the podcast were that it's more like in today's world, 80% of valuation is made up of intangible assets, and more like 20% on average is from balance sheet value. So that's kind of significant. In some areas, that's 80% goodwill. And then we gather all this information together and we prepare a business insights report. This insights report is like a 50-page document. It's there to show you, the business owner, of all the complete review of the business and how a buyer will assess your business and how they will value the business. And we take you through it step by step to show you what they're looking at, what your strengths are, what you need to improve on to make your business more attractive to a strategic buyer. And I'll just show you the business insights report. One of the things we do is we go, here's a strategic overview. Let's have a look at how attractive your business is to be bought. Because some of the things around move up evaluation that make up evaluation, some of them are profit related. But a whole lot of them that affect the multiple, you may be aware that a business valuation is a combination of a profit number and a multiple of that number. Now, depending on the business size and industry will determine on whether it's how that profit number is constructed and whether it's a profit number or a revenue number. But the multiple is basically an indicator of risk. What's the risk to that current profit trajectory being maintained under new ownership? So we need to address all of those risk factors. So we do that assessment in that business insights report, and this is the page that everyone's interested in when they see the business insights report. It's a bit like any consulting proposal. You go to the page that shows you the price. on the Business Insights report, you go to the page and you have a look at all of the detail, but the page you're really interested in is what's my business worth today? So that's this column here. What's my business worth today? Now, this column here, excuse me. Sorry about that. This column here is what would my business be worth if I was operating at best practice? If my business, if we do some benchmarking, which we do in the report for you, and we identify what best practice is. So in my industry or industry similar to mine, what are the best businesses operating at? How profitable are they? So that's the boost in valuation just by improving the profit based off my current revenue. And all these valuations here are based off my current revenue. So if I was operating at best practice, best in class, what would my valuation be? And then we move through to these second two columns of if I was attractive, so if I was leveraging my intangible assets, and if I made my business attractive to a strategic buyer, they would boost the multiples. And what would my valuation be with a combination of best in class profit and really attractive to a strategic acquire? What impact would that have on my multiple and therefore my overall valuation? So we just show you, here's your current valuation and here's your potential valuation if you address all of the 21 steps, all the risk factors that are dragging your valuation down, risk and performance factors. So that's a quick view of the Stage 1 Insights report, and that Business Insights report completes Stage 1. We come and we present that report to you. We spend a couple of hours, we go through all the issues, we identify what's required for you, and you can take the Business Insights report and either implement it yourself. But what most people do is they say, look, can you give us a hand? We would have already implemented those things if we knew how to do them ourselves already. And it's always good to have a helping hand to push you along and keep the pace moving and bring fresh ideas and an outside perspective. Right, we now move on to Stage 2. Stage 2, as you recall, is all about protecting what we've already built. Let's make sure let's build that solid foundation so that nothing is eroded away. I sometimes talk about Stage 2, protecting valuation is all about the things that I need to do that make sure that I get that standard industry multiplier. We often hear in our industry that the standard multiple for our industry is 3, 5, 7, 12, whatever it is. Let's put all the things in place that make sure we get at least that. So let's have a look at our personal financial planning is the first one to make sure what do I need out of my business exit to live in the way that I want to live post my business. So what do I need? Unplanned events, we addressed those earlier, we touched on those. Let's make sure that everything happens as we would like it to happen. If in the unfortunate situation there's an unplanned exit from my business, and then let's have a look at all the things that present a risk. Let's do some contingency planning. Let's address all of the risks. Let's do some risk analysis, all the things that could happen. Obviously, COVID, we didn't see that coming, but if we are on the front foot as much as possible, we can de-risk our business. So that's step 2. Now that we've addressed those fundamentals, we can move into some of the stuff that's more exciting. When we work in these areas, what we find is that the business owners go through a period of re-energizing themselves because they're being taken out of the operations. If they haven't already, they're starting to work on, this is all the stuff where you're working on your business. And often business owners get stuck making this shift, working in their business to on their business because they don't know where to start. This is all the stuff that we do to help you work on your business and get you detached from an operational role of your business. These are all the things that will boost your assets in the business. They'll extract the intangible assets, which are often the best kept secret. And often business owners say, we don't have intangible assets, Darryl or Kevin. And our job is to go, look, this is an intangible asset. Let's get it out. Let's just get it out of your hidden process and let's leverage it and put it on display and brand it up or give it a name or give it a process so that you're using it because it's part of what you're doing anyway. It's part of your IP, your intellectual property. Let's name it and get the most from what you're doing so that everyone knows about it. So we work through all of those. Step 14 and 15 and 13 is all about exploring ownership. Is employee ownership something that will accelerate and increase the valuation of your business? And if you are exploring the employee ownership side of things, let's make sure we get that shift from employee style thinking to an ownership mindset. Let's get all employees with an ownership mindset, and that'll really help you get the most out of employee ownership. Marketing, sales, strategic financials, the business planning model. These are all things where we can extract IP out of your business and leverage the valuation of your business. So moving on, so we need to go, okay, so I've now got my business in a stage where I've worked through it. I'm now no longer got any involvement in the operations of my business. I'm energized with where my business is at, and I'm ready to put it on the market. I'm ready to exit the business myself. At this point, some business owners, I think we mentioned earlier, are saying, yeah, I might hang around a couple of years. The business is in a shape. It's more profitable. It's better than it's ever been for a long time. It's far more enjoyable than it was. I'm having fun. I might hang around another couple of years. Other business owners go, no, let's go. Let's put it on the market. So here's where it's really important to go back to your accountant. I've had feedback from accountants in the past where they've said, Darryl, look, I've been working with the client for years. And when they set up the business, they said, look, set it up so it's as tax efficient as possible, which is fine. We did that. We're running the business, legitimately, weren't doing anything, too clever. And it was tax effective. But they never came back to me and asked me to change the brief and say, look, Darryl, we're now looking to exit the business and prepare the business for exit. Instead, they just came back and told me that a deal was done. So if they told me earlier, we could have saved them a whole lot of tax if we'd known that they were looking to sell or exit their business. So tax planning is critical. We need to get your accountant involved early and do some tax planning. We need to get your documentation right. We need to tidy up all your documentation and get it in a central repository location, get a deal room sorted out so that when a buyer comes looking, they're going to ask for a lot of evidence. They're going to ask for a lot of information. And if you can put your hands on that quickly, it'll give them a lot of confidence and it'll help a deal to happen quickly. Liquidity event is the actual transaction. And again, we'll get a third party involved, a specialist to work on that with you, and we can guide you through it. And once we've gone through and we've extracted the value of the business, we talked about we need to manage the ongoing value of now. We've extracted it out of the business. It's now in our bank account. And so we've got a different sort of asset management to what we've ever had in the past. And again, we need different expertise to help us with that. So we need to protect our assets. We need to do some estate planning. Depending on what we've been able to build and create and extract out of our business, this asset planning and estate management will be different depending on what you've created. So we need to extract those assets from our business and look after them. So that's if you like, that's the best case scenario. That's the process we will follow with a business from A to B, from step 1 to 21, to help them manage and extract and build the value of their business. And if they follow and they get all those steps in place, they will get to exit like a boss and exit on their terms and get the most from their life's work. So that's the process that we follow. In summary, there's the summary, but we need to really get the business exit ready. We need to look after your personal and financial and family wealth. And we really need to know what you're going to be doing life after the business. And once we've got those things addressed, they're the key factors. If you'd like to know more, what we've done is we've created an Exit Like a Boss podcast. I've got, for those of you who are just on Audible only, we've got a QR code on the screen where you can click that QR code and that'll take you to a page where you can just register for this podcast. It's 21 episodes. They're less than 10 minutes each. Their podcast is hosted by Craig West, who's the founder of Succession Plus in Australia. So it's a different accent for you. But Craig is the founder and the author of the 21 Steps primarily. So yeah, you'll get it straight from him as well. So encourage you to have a look at Exit Like a Boss. He'll spend a bit more detail talking about some of the different aspects of the 21 steps that we've talked about today. And if you'd like to contact us or stay in touch and get more information, what we've got here is my contact details and the business website, Succession Plus. We've got a note there going, look, we've got a podcast called Exit Insights. That's where we're interviewing all sorts of people who help business owners prepare for exit. We've got some great stories there of some business owners who have also exited their business, and they talk about what they wish they knew before they started the process. So if you're at the beginning of your journey now and thinking about what you need to do to start preparing for exit, the Exit Insights podcast could be a great listen for you while you're traveling to work, walking the dog, what have you. So that's it from me. I know Kevin has been collecting questions along the way, and so I'll pass it back to Kevin now, and we'll go through any questions you may have had.
Great, thanks, Darryl. Pretty much bang on time, well done. And there are a couple of questions from our guests today that you didn't touch on during the 30 minutes, I don't think. Let me quickly offer them up to you. The first one was from Malcolm, who asks, do you have any experience of any employee ownership solutions, as that is what I'm interested in?
So employee ownership, yeah, look, we've done a number of employee ownerships, and we've in the UK specifically, it's based around EOT and EMI schemes. We touched on there's some research that was just released in the last week or so from the EOA, the Employee Ownership Association. And the research demonstrated that employee ownership, what we all know, employee-owned firms end up being more productive than non-employee-owned firms. More productive means more profitable and more beneficial to the owners. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of businesses over the last few years who have just gone, hey, look, I see employee ownership. It's a great way to exit my business. I haven't been able to find a buyer, but an EOT is really advantageous from a tax perspective. And they've just gone down the EOT route without any, let's say, preparation and planning. Now, they may have done all the legal planning and the tax planning to get the paperwork right for the EOT, but they haven't prepared the business to be EOT. What we know is if you want to take advantage of employee ownership, yes, getting your documentation, getting the tax structures and setting up the structures, the legal structures, getting that right is a big part of it. But even more importantly, getting the culture in the workforce. An employee-owned workforce, an employee-owned business culture is different to a non-employee-owned culture. We need to educate all of the employees so they understand the fundamentals of how the business works, because they're now a stakeholder. They're an interested party. They need to understand what it is they're involved in so that they can get the most out of it. And if you really want to get the most out of an employee-owned workforce, you need to prepare the mindset first and shift from employee thinking to that ownership mindset. And that is one of the steps in the maximize stage of the business. Bit of a long answer to a short question, but hopefully I've addressed the intent of the question there, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Darryl. Malcolm, the answer was yes. We do have lots of experience with employee ownership solutions. It was partly with that, Darryl, answered the next question from Jonathan, but you only answered it from an employee ownership solution point of view. Jonathan asks specifically, how do I ensure that key staff want to stay? So that's a broader question than just employee ownership.
Yeah, look, it's a really important question when you're looking at exiting the business, because if you've structured the business so that your key staff are now running the business, they're in key leadership roles in the business, they're key people. A buyer wants to make that, you've set the business up, you've prepared the business so that it's not dependent on you. And if you've got this right, you've got your systems and structures that are running all the operations of the business. One of the key things that you want to do is, yes, you want to have a great leadership team in place and you want them loyal, and you want all of your staff loyal and committed to running the business. But one of the things you can do to de-risk the key people is ensure that you've got a management system in place as well. So you've probably heard of the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which talks about the EOS. That is an example of a management system that de-risks your management people, your business from a management perspective, because the management team are now running and operating to a system just like the operations team are. There's one of the strategies to de-risk the management team. Another strategy is to lock them in with EMIs, and when I say lock them in, I don't mean trap them. I mean, you want to have them aligned to the business, their objectives, their benefits, they are incentivized by the profitability and the outcome of the business heading in that same positive direction, and they don't have competing tensions by just trying to get sales targets, for example. So yeah, it's kind of, how do you keep key people? Make sure everyone's aligned to the overall goals and objectives and purpose and mission of the business and the vision. Have your remuneration structures that are aligned to those overall big goals of the business, and make sure everyone's on board. But we're going back, short answer is some sort of employee ownership is, I think, ultimately the best way to achieve that.
Okay, thanks for that one. We have a question here from Katrina, which is, what are some of the intangible assets and how to quantify them?
Oh, okay. So intangible assets are any of the assets that aren't seen on your balance sheet when your accountant prepares your financial accounts for annual returns and just managing the business. They don't sit. You don't see them on your financial reporting. So an example of intangible assets could be staff retention and longevity, since that's fresh in mind. Another could be your process. So we've talked about the 21 steps. It's a process that we've developed over the years. It's the process we follow that is we're confident and we have the evidence that helps businesses exit like a boss. So we've documented that process and we display it and we share it. So the business is known for that process. There's an intangible asset. It's your IP, your intellectual property, and your intellectual property could also be part of the process that you follow. It could be your contacts or your contracts that you have in place that ensure long-term revenue flow and therefore profit to your business. Hopefully, it relates to profit, but the long-term contracts and the relationships that you have or your business preferably has with the key industry players, so that brings revenue in. It could be any database you have of names. It could be your brand. Your brand is known in the marketplace, and clients are coming, they're looking for your brand, so they're coming to your business because your brand and your brand reputation is known. So they're sort of examples that could be intangible assets. The big ones being brand, IP, systems and processes, and channels and routes to market.
Great, thanks for that one. Thank you, Katrina. Another 2 questions we've got here, and I think that's the locks wanted to have come through direct to me, but yeah, just 2 more here, Darryl. One from Ishmael. It says, can I just get the business report that you mentioned without all the other activity?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, look, that's stage 1. We can prepare the report for you, fixed fee, prepare the report. And part of that is presenting it and identifying all the issues with you and what you need to do to maximize the value of the business. That's a fixed engagement, if you like, and it stops there.
Yeah, great. So Ishmael, just give us a shout and we'll continue that conversation to see if that's exactly what you want and need. Our final question for today is from Louise, who says, my business is a collection of 8 retail outlets that are run as separate limited companies, averaging about £1 million each. Are you able to help in this case?
Yeah, look, and what we need to do is present, have a look at what the entities are, because from a business acquisition perspective, we need to look at it through the buyer's lens. And we need to just be clear what they are buying. So yes, we can pull all those together, and if they're held in some sort of holding company, but that's definitely a strategy that we can have a look at, because often all of those separate structures are put in place. That's part of that tax planning that we talked about earlier, and also protection. But but sometimes protecting the owners of the business and the business strategy can get in the way of making a nice clean deal. So it's managed your risk in the first place, but it's also potentially increased the risk and increased the friction for a buyer. So yeah, that's an example of you need to get in there early and start to have a look at whatever restructuring is required, if any is required, as part of your planning process to exit cleanly and exit like a boss.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And thank you for all the people that contributed to those questions. Darryl, can you just push the screen slides back to one with the QR code in case anyone didn't get a chance to grab it?
That one or the podcast one?
That one's fine. So whatever happens, people can get hold of us through that. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope today has been illuminating. For many people that join our sessions, our webinars, it's the start of a much longer conversation. And there's no way we can do justice to everything that needs to be done to exit your business like a boss in a 30 minutes online like this. So please, let's keep talking about it. If you've got questions, however big, however small, get in touch with us and we'll answer them. And we look forward to talking to all of you in one way, shape or form in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.